I want to bring in Yahoo Finance senior reporter Brooke DiPalma. Brooke, we just mentioned this. Crude oil prices are up. We almost immediately saw the impact at the pump on Monday. But what other impacts could we see as this war continues on?
Certainly think of the impact that this could have on travel right now. What we do know is that because of these restrictions within the air, these jetliners, these airliners have to move around and use more fuel in order to go around these regions that do right now have those air restrictions. On top of that, fuel costs are increasing, and that could have both of those could have serious implications for ticket prices moving forward for Americans when it comes to travel demand. And on top of that, what we do know is that diesel prices are also rising at an extreme rate, up 27 cents than where they were just a few days ago. Just a week ago. This is the highest level now seen since December of 2023. And when we think about diesel, over 70% of U.S. freights use diesel, or rather, move roughly 70% of freights use diesel by trucks in order to move goods around the U.S. And that could have implications for food prices, good prices, also construction materials. So it could eventually impact later on. It has sort of a trickle down effect of costs for Americans, and that could definitely put upward pressures in later on time frames. On top of that, too, the last thing I want to point out here is I spoke with the America's Farmers Bureau, and as I mentioned the other day, fertilizer costs also could be impacted that on this front, and that also could have serious implications ahead of this key spring planting season. That also could push inflation higher because of the costs on food as well.
Yeah, we're going to see the impacts in the grocery store, perhaps. Brooke, we know China imports nearly half of its oil from the Persian Gulf, and this war, as we saw, disrupted the supply line. China now sending a special envoy to the region. What does this mean, do you think, for the conflict and the oil supply?
Well, Iran is one of about 10 to 12% of Iran is imported with crude oil. China imports around 10 to 12% of its crude oil imports, rather, from Iran. And so definitely there are high stakes here for the economic ties that China has with Iran. Also keep in mind, China just lost its ties with Venezuela within crude oil. When it comes to that, their imports are about 3 to 5%. And so certainly what we could see here is two things. This could eventually lead to a de-escalation that could ultimately lower crude oil prices, that could ultimately de-escalate situation and the tie-ups that we have right now, and that would be good news on that front. Now, on the flip side, this could have implications for a increase in crude oil. If this does not go, if the situation is not mediated as planned with this tie, with this envoy heading there, then that could ultimately push prices higher. What I'm hearing from my sources is that the fear was over $80 per barrel. Now that we surpassed that, now the fear is that this could go upwards of $100 per barrel, and that could have serious implications moving forward. But definitely looking for some mediation here, looking that this could ultimately lead to a peace, to some sort of de-escalation of this situation.
Brooke DiPalma with Yahoo Finance. Thanks so much, Brooke.